So in the later months of the Gamergate scandal, you saw that some people would actually criticize the gaming community in the past and call it the losers and nerds, mainly like right-wing, MRA, and pickup artist types, sort of joined or hijacked the movement a little. Not that there was like anything to hijack in the first place, but they sort of co-opted it. And I guess your opinions on Gamergate in relation to the other sort of main reactionary, socially right-wing movement in the Western world.
I mean, okay, the whole thing jumped the shark when Jack Thompson literally became like a Gamergate person.
Literally Jack Thompson.
Literally Jack Thompson
Literally
himself.
Jack Thompson.
And people sort of rewrote history and said Jack Thompson was friendlier to the game community than the current critics are. Which is, Jack Thompson said that everybody should go to prison. He lost his license because he filed lawsuits like accusing people of murder for making video games that in his mind directly led to school shootings. And he is okay because he's pro-Gamergate, you know, like, so at some point I think it's like anytime you get a pointless kind of internet fight, it just kind of feeds on itself. The point of being in it is to be in it. The whole like source of what it was about gets lost because now it's about winning, it's about fighting, and it's about fighting the specific people that you don't like. And see, this is getting to the stuff where I don't really want to dredge up internet drama. But it's like I had a disagreement with another person, and everybody, oh whatever. I had a disagreement with Sui Park, who was the person who did the cancel Colbert hashtag, and Gamergate actually took her side because it was me that she didn't like, even though like cancel Colbert was totally the sort of thing that they should be against. But now Colbert's a bad guy because he had Anita on his show. I'm a bad guy. So there's just no actual rhyme or reason to it. It's the funny thing about once people just get mad, it feeds on itself. It's about taking down the people that you specifically don't like. But I would say there is a real element, to take your point, that, yeah, there is a point where people are threatened by feminism in particular, that gender, you know, I'm saying this as a man, as a man of color, I think gender is a more primary, like a more basic thing that people get mad over. The idea of gender existed long before the idea of race existed. And it sort of cuts at the core, like if a man feels like someone's questioning his manhood, there's something about that cuts at the core of a person and makes them incredibly, you know, defensive. And so, yeah, feminism seems to be like looking at what you call like right-wing movements. It always comes back to the man-woman, like manhood, masculinity. That what is wrong with the modern world is that manhood has been undermined. And the angriest people are the people who have that like personal stake in it. That there's something about being emasculated. Like just even the word emasculated. The image of having your balls cut off is somehow like in academia, you know, emasculated. You see it over things that are not literally having your balls cut off. Somehow that image, like, so-and-so is emasculating so-and-so by portraying him as such in his paper, you know, like, so.
You know, that's sort of like the root of it, right? The idea that, you know, which is kind of why, like, even like my like almost tearing up at the beginning of the last panel, like even though like I was like kind of genuinely freaked out for a second, and then we all like had a really fun discussion. That was really cool. Now I'm fine. Just whatever, caution, wind. But like that idea of, you know, like having a Gamergate panel that didn't have a woman on it, like seemed a little weird. So I was like, I'm gonna fall on the sword, because the idea of it isn't so much. I mean, you know, this is like me like dredging it up. Sorry, or anything. But like, if it is actually about ethics and gaming journalism, if it is, you know, actually about that, then it's like, why not go after the journalist, not the dev, if it's true, which it totally wasn't in the first place, right? So it's like disproportionately anti-feminist as well, and that seems to be the sort of like main critique. And then as soon as you like slap the feminism label on it, then a whole bunch of other people come out of the woodwork that are like, ooh, what, feminism? Yes. Oh, I got it. So that's that. It's like no nuance needed. If it's a bunch of like feminists getting angry about something, then boom, pounce.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily conscious. This is something that I've had to examine with myself. Like, there was a study that I saw at some point. People perceive a crowd to have an even gender balance in a movie when it's actually about like 3/8 women and the rest men.
Yeah.
And if you actually have 50-50 women men, they think it's dominated by women. This is just like, it's almost programmed into us, and people don't think they're doing it. Like teachers, male or female, they count the number of times they call on people in class, and usually they call on twice as many men as women, but they think they called on the same number. And so it's like, people will say, no, Anita draws attention to herself. So-and-so draws attention to herself. She's an attention whore, right? And they're really not doing anything different than guys in the community are doing, but they are seen as taking up more space because you just automatically think women aren't supposed to take up as much space. It's like an adjustment that you do in your head, and it's really messed up.
Yup.
Yeah. All right. Yes, you in the back.
So in the first session, someone asked you, as someone who had never even really heard anything about feminism before this, how would you recommend one start looking into it? But another thing that I think is kind of the $1 million question is, so it's been an awful experience being involved in the gaming community, and that's why we're having this panel here. And it's exhausting, and it makes you sick, and it makes you want to cry sometimes, and in fact, many people have repeatedly out of anger or sadness or fear or whatever. But it's always kind of been my mindset where if someone can stay in the trenches about an issue that needs a lot of work, it's their responsibility to do it as much as they can. And I don't like the fact that there have been so many times where I've just not gone on the internet for weeks, because it's a community that I've been in my entire life, and I want to be able to take part in it. But I hate the fact that I can't put pictures of myself on Twitter because people will take something I said and they'll start putting my freaking picture everywhere and say, look at this bitch and how she has her hair done. Which is like, So I know that if we had the answer to the question of how can we make this better, we would be doing it. But I know that one of the problems that we're having is if someone says, okay, look how this person was doxxed and look how this person was swatted, gamer readers will say, oh, well, this is happening to us too. And of course, we have no way of knowing if this actually happened. And I'm not about to say, oh, you're making this up. Except for the time where I called someone a goober, and he put me on a whole freaking gallery of anti-Gamergate abuse and said that I doxed him because I linked a dumb tweet he made. And I know that there's just so many accusations flying around now that it's like, well, how the hell are we even supposed to start figuring out what's going on? So I just don't really know if, since that's not actually working, pointing out actual abuses that are happening, how can we make this better? Because I'm exhausted.
It's okay to take a break.
Self-care.
Please do that. Please take care of yourself and be awesome and amazing, and treat yourself 2015. Be awesome. And thank you for doing any work you have done. And it's totally cool to say, you know what, my mana is low. I need to recharge. And it's totally cool to do that. And I'm glad that there are some people that do and have like Brianna Wu sometimes has I don't know how she freaking does it. I'm like, how do you do this? But I'm glad that you do what you do, because I don't think I would have the patience or the energy to be able to do so. And there are some people that will genuinely try to engage and sometimes it works and then sometimes it doesn't. And I feel like sometimes there might be some people that you're going to reach, and there might be some people that just because you're you and because you have whatever stance you have, they will just never listen to anything that you have to say, and then you just have to be like, well, I hope that you remember that you and I have way more in common than we are different, and that we both love video games, and I hope that we can both find some joy, and I hope that you can find some joy in creating something positive, rather than tearing somebody down. That'd be really awesome. The end blocked. I don't know. It's hard. Like sometimes, it's like it's not gonna work. You can't like set up like an intervention, with every single person. You're just gonna drive yourself insane. But I don't know what the response is to that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in because that's actually an issue close to my heart. Like, what is it? What good are you doing by getting involved in internet fights? I am a person who spent my life getting involved in internet fights. I'm one of those guys. It's usually guys. It usually is guys. And
better than me.
well, I mean, it's good and it's bad because on the one hand it means like, yeah, I've got the stamina or I've got the thick skin, if you want to call it. I'm not sure that's a good thing, but I've got the thick skin to wade in and, yell at these guys and try to argue with them. And I've done both. I've like yelled at people and just called them out, and I've like sat there and like taken apart an argument for like 2 hours. But yeah, and the thing is, they're gonna drag you down easier than you can lift anybody up. You lie down with a dog, you get up with fleas. Is one of the ways and it brings out a side in me, even if I think I'm doing it for good, for justice. The internet, social justice warrior thing, if you're spending all your time fighting, it makes you an ugly person. And at some point I was like, the cost to me isn't worth it. It's fun to use the gaming metaphor, and I was for a long time. It was like social justice barbarian. It was like, my role here is to taunt and draw aggro, but unlike in an MMO, it doesn't end. It just keeps going. And a better analogy than that, which someone else, Randy Harper, used, was that this is like a constant DDoS attack. That it's not about the arguments. Most of the arguments they probably don't believe. I was stealing myself for really stupid arguments I know people don't believe. Arthur Chu, I have evidence that you're a rapist, from a YouTube video that you did. That kind of thing. And it's not to, like I said earlier, it's just to mess with you, it's to get your emotions involved. And like the whole deal with the DDoS is one person has a website that they'd like to put up, they like to say a bunch of randos on the internet have low orbit ion cannon down on their computer, and that's all they do. So there's one person who's trying to accomplish something, and a bunch of people who have nothing better than to tear you down. You're going to lose if you try to fight head on, directly. And so it can't be about that. Like Twitter fights can be, it can help. Like I think that, to pull a random example out, like the only reason we're paying attention to Bill Cosby right now is because people didn't shut up. People kept getting tired and shutting up. There were waves of people trying to talk and then getting tired, but eventually it broke them just because someone made a mean joke about it. In fact, a comedian made a mean joke and that stuck where the allegations didn't. But, for every one of those, there's so many cases where the fight just spirals out of control and becomes its own reason to continue the fight, and it drags you down before you lift anybody up. And there's got to be better solutions than that. I'm on the side of thinking there's got to be better technological solutions for dealing with abuse on the internet rather than just expecting people to take it and dish it back out for everything that they take. But
yeah.